Umer, this is something that we've been talking about for some time now. For context, for anybody that is checking into this episode, Umer is our lead designer on our team at Brighter Click, but he's in a growth path right now to become a creative strategist. There's been a lot of stuff that you've been working on over the past couple of months. It's been a while now. A lot of stuff you've been working on over the past couple of months to move into that creative strategist role. And I really want to talk through that because I think that this is a pivotal time for a lot of people as we're talking about AI and is AI going to replace me and can I do what AI can't do, et cetera. You're really getting ahead of the curve and starting to move into a role that you feel will set you up for success down the road. Just because graphic design and creative and stuff is getting so commoditized and easily accessible through generative AI that way. But before we get all there, let's take a step back. Let's rewind. When you first joined our team, actually, no, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and then I'll start into my questions.
Yep. Thank you so much, Colby. Really excited to be here. And I am basically a graphic designer. I used to call myself a graphic designer based out of Pakistan, and then have like 9 years of experience in the design world, all sort of things, web design, motion design, graphic design, you name it. And I've dabbled with pretty much everything related to design. But joined Brighter Click almost a year ago now. And as soon as I got a hint of what we were doing here, like creative strategy and all the media buying stuff and combining everything into just sort of like this strategy point of view packaging, I just wanted to just get my hands dirty with that right away. Like being a designer for so long, you kind of get saturated with it. And you kind of just like repeatedly keep creating designs that you then have no control over in terms of like what kind of performance is there. You cannot attach any metrics to it. So I just wanted to upscale a bit there. Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing for the past few years or so.
No, that's awesome. And so you joined us about a year ago. I could tell from the very beginning you had that grit and that determination because you actually came in through a LinkedIn, I think, cold DM or cold connection request and then followed up. But it sounds like when you came into the role, you hadn't necessarily before the role thought about moving in the creative strategist position. But when you saw what was happening in the agency and you saw the type of work, what sparked that in you? Like what gave you that interest or that confidence to be able to want to move towards a new role?
I think naturally within me, I've always just felt the need to keep upskilling myself no matter what industry it's in. Like I'm a computer science graduate, someone from the design world. You would barely imagine that someone who's spent 4 years studying computer sciences and learning all these programming languages, and doing things like that would have so much interest and make a career out of just like design, right? So that's naturally been one of the things that I've been doing always on the side. And with design, I started off with just graphic design and then gravitated towards motion design eventually, just because that was like a higher tier of design work. And then seeing that same kind of progression here when I joined Brighter Click, I was introduced to this creative strategy, which I had no idea about because I was not involved in the marketing side of a lot of things there. I would just be passed on briefs and I would just be executing on those without knowing fully the impact of what I'm creating in the first place, right? So when you have an opportunity to tie up these metrics to your designs and to be able to actually say that, okay, at the end of the day, I'm able to generate this kind of revenue for my clients through my designs, right? That's such a bold statement, and you can back it up, right? Like I see a lot of the times people claiming that they're able to generate so and so revenue through their words or through their design. And I've always just wondered, like, how are they able to do that? How are they able to attach those metrics, right? So naturally, that was one of the key things that got me into creative strategy. And along with that, I've always kind of wanted to gravitate towards more of a strategy role eventually, because you can only do design for so long, right? Like, at least for me, that was one of the goals early on as well. Like, okay, I'm going to learn design till a certain point, and then the natural next step would be to just be in a senior position where I am overlooking maybe a team of designers. And I think creative strategy was one of the pathways, the direct pathways that I could see to me reaching that goal. And naturally, with creative strategy, there's so much psychology involved. I've always been a curious person that way. So I think, yeah, it's got all the right mix of things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, you said a lot of interesting things there. One of the things that really stuck out to me is something that I've noticed hundreds of interviews with graphic designers to potentially work at our agency. And it seems like, and it's not really their fault. I think it's the way that organizations are set up, but it seems like 99% of designers, creatives never get access to analytics. They never get access to the data. So their journey and the experience really stops once they get QC approvals. And so I feel like naturally that just sets designers up to be a little shorthanded or not fully setting them up for success, because success is measured based off of a person's opinion about a creative, but not the end customer's opinion, which is what drives sales and drives performance that way. And so as you've been moving into this creative strategist role, learning data, learning, what KPIs go together to understand performance has been something. How's that transition been from moving from the creative hat to the analytical hat?
Yeah, I mean, when I speak about like attaching metrics to the data, obviously there are a few set KPIs, like the industry standard ones that you can attach to your creative. For example, with static ads, that's click through rates, your CPMS. When you're talking about performance in an ad account specifically, with videos, there's thumb stop rates, hold rates, and just generally CPMS and click through rates as well. But all these metrics are just something that you push me towards, Colby, and I have to give you credit for that, because it would have been initially, if I am looking at it from a designer's point of view, if I'm giving the opportunity to delve into creative strategy, I would lean more naturally towards like the briefing aspect of it, and just like doing the creative side of it more, right? So to basically inculcate myself in data, I think that's something that you push me towards, and now I'm seeing why. Because to understand all these metrics, it's just been really crucial towards me being able to say what's a winning creative and what's not a winning creative, and then what's a winning brief, and how do we iterate this on the next set of briefs and next set of ads. So all these things to say that data, I've always not been a fan of numbers, but naturally, when you see that there's an opportunity to understand data, which will enable you to be a better creative and a better designer overall, you would just take that opportunity, and you would do everything you can to just like learn those metrics in the back of your head, and familiarize yourself with the concepts and the goals behind each behind each metric there. So I feel like that's one of the crucial things that you need to grasp if you're talking about like creative strategy coming from a designing point of view. And there's no workaround of it. Like, you can talk about all these AI tools that are out there that can enable you to perform rapid creative testing, and you can find out winners, and you can do all these iterations, but none of it matters if you're not really understanding data and how that feeds into successes for your clients. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think as I was mentioning the graphic designer interviews that I've done, hundreds of different graphic designers, the common thing that I would hear when I would ask them what they want to work towards, what's their career path goals, is the term creative director. And I
Hmm.
think the big differentiator between creative director and the path that you're going is that data piece, because that
Yeah.
you said just by default, or what I'm interpreting from what you just said by default, is you were naturally gravitating towards like the creative briefing aspect of creative strategy, because that was more in the wheelhouse of designing. You know what I mean? But that adding that data piece in to understand leading your strategy, leading your briefs with data is where that performance comes in. And there's I'm not going to say there's a right or wrong way, because it's two different fields. One is moving more towards brand creative and just brand design work, and one is moving towards performance creative and performance design work. And obviously, as a performance agency, we're a little bit more on the performance side of things, right? And I think it's important to have that data, the ability to speak data, so that you can communicate with C-suite and decision makers and clients to make sure that you are impactful that way. And so, as we've mentioned, you've been on a growth path. Just to kind of give a high level of that as we set the stage for this conversation a little bit further, What we generally do at the agency when someone wants to move into a new role or take on new responsibilities is we'll build out a growth path with various milestones. And each of those milestones is fixed to focus on a few key opportunities for education, but also for deliverables as well. Your first milestone was really focused on starting to pick up some responsibilities outside of design work, right? So you were looking, reading a marketing book, and I think it was This is Marketing by Seth Godin is what you read. And then starting to manage post production, actually for a different service, not creative strategy, but post production for a podcast management client that we do. And that really incorporated the entire project management and decision making, but also the client communication. So we're starting to get up to speed on those other soft skills as well. And then just demonstrating the ability to plan iterations based on top and medium performers. So we took a creative brief, which, there's multiple parts to it, net new, planning, and iterations. And we said, okay, let's focus on the iterations first, because we want to understand how to read data, and then what is an iteration, because so many people have different terms for it. That was milestone one. Milestone two went into copywriting, right? So started learning more about copywriting, reading a book there, because you had done the design work for many, many years, almost a decade. The copywriting piece really pulls together the creative strategy side of design work that way. And then we started to look at influencer sourcing and you managing a campaign for influencer sourcing. And then milestone three, which is where you currently are, we're starting to look at, shadowing client calls, getting up to speed on client communication, those types of things, managing multiple creative briefs from start to finish. So we've already done in a previous milestone iterations. Now we're doing net new and iterations. And then independently managing creators, influencers, and delivering 90-day strategies that way. So just to kind of set the stage for everybody on where you're at, but passing it back to you, as you've gone through this so far, milestone 1, 2, and 3, or phase 1, 2, and 3, what's a skill or what's this part of creative strategy that you've kind of grown to like or love that you didn't necessarily expect going into this?
I think the biggest thing from this would be, and it's funny because both are things that I generally just like hated or just like avoided. That's data, and that's just generally copywriting. And you mentioned like I had to, you recommended me books that I could read for copywriting. Both are things that I generally avoided, right? So to be able to grasp that as one of the most exciting things that I've done here in my growth path, that understanding data. And it's not just about performance data. When you're delving into all these metrics, you generally understand on a broader scale what all these enterprises and all these big companies, they set as their KPIs. For every tier, there's a different set of KPIs that they use. And to be able to understand all those business decisions, why they're made, and what KPIs they're set that they make those decisions based on. So that really gives you the power to speak to your clients in a more free manner, and you're not restricted to just like a PDF in front of you that you're presenting to them on a 30-minute call, right? You can just talk to them and talk about like extrapolating information from the data that you've seen, talk about like next 90 days or even beyond that, like your next 1 year goals, like what's your revenue goal for next year and things like that. And then you can quantify all of that, right? So to be able to make those conversations with your clients really just like positions you as an expert. And this is just something that I would recommend to anyone at any level of marketing, design, or copywriting, that just being able to understand and speak in terms of data and that business speak gives you so much power over every other person out there who is just a designer, who is just a copywriter, or who is just a marketer, right? So that's one of the crucial things I felt that I had got in my arsenal now. And secondly, copywriting, there's always a debate about what is more important, whether it's copy or whether it's a design, right? Whether that's for a website, whether that's for an ad, whether that's for a TV commercial. I think being a designer, naturally you would expect me to, argue more in favor of design first, right? But see, the other way around, because copywriting just sets the tone for, how you intend to connect with that audience eventually, right? Design is just one of the many ways that you can execute that. But essentially, at the core of it is just the message that you're giving out to your audience, right? For example, if you're talking about a TV commercial, if you have all these visuals and no voiceover or script behind it, it just falls short, right? You're not really connecting with the audience, you're not really delivering a message. And it's much easier if you're setting the copy first for an ad or for a TV commercial or for a website, and then design upon that and let that guide the design style, than it is the other way around. So that's one of the other things that I felt that was really powerful for me, is just understanding how much copywriting makes an impact, and how much copywriting contributes towards the success of a creative output, right? And then thirdly, with the influences, that's something that I've never ever touched, and I could never imagine myself being involved in. But it's so incredibly exciting to shape all these campaigns for your clients that have a real impact down the road. Because, like you said, like we're a performance marketing agency, everything is really restricted to briefs and restricted to ads. But when you're talking about like a brand marketing point of view, influencer marketing really kicks in there, because it shapes the narrative of your brand, who you want to be seen as, and to be able to directly make an impact on all these things. That's incredibly exciting. And the kind of you know uh, I want to say trendjacking, but it's just been what's working for the industry overall, right? Influencer marketing, content marketing, everything. But to be able to be involved in these things firsthand is an extremely rewarding experience, because you're gaining those skills which would present you as an expert and an overall expert digital marketer overall, because you would work isolated in tiers otherwise, right? Like, I'm a performance marketer, I specifically work in Facebook advertising, or for example, I'm a website developer, or I'm a website designer. You would work in isolation and work in silos with all these creative things. But with influencer marketing, working in ad production, working in podcast post production, you're just generally having all these different pieces tie up to shape you as a marketer. And I feel like being exposed to all these different things has given me so much more control and depth over what really pushes the needle for clients. And if a client comes to me tomorrow and tells me that, okay, this is my goal, there's a million ways I can present to them that we can achieve that goal, rather than just sticking to, okay, like, let's just create a 10 set of ads for you and then let's run those, and that's the only acquisition method that I have for you. No, there's influencer marketing. You could get on a podcast and do like a whole 2-month series and produce tons of clips. And then there's like uh, you know ad production as well. And then things you could improve on your website as well. There's now TikTok shop as well that you can explore. So there's tons of channels, and I feel like being exposed to all these different things has given me a grasp of what really could set me apart from my other peers.
And and that's the big focus with these growth paths. Just to kind of go back to that, is set the opportunity to get your feet wet in multiple areas and see what you go towards. Because the role, let's say you're moving towards a creative strategist. We've already had this conversation, you and I, where there is the creative briefing side of things. There is the working with ad designers and working with clients. That's one part of it, but there's also, if the agency is large enough and there's enough demand flow, a completely separate role, which is influencer management and UGC management and affiliate management, which could be a full-time job on its own, which is still part of creative strategy, right? It's just a different side of that, or a different thing of it. And I know you've been working pretty heavily on the influencer management side, and I just have to give you your kudos where it's deserved. Where when you first jumped into it, you were looking at doing a campaign in guidance with me involved with that, and then you brought forward a full ClickUp document with recommendations on how we can improve the process, how you saw that you potentially, like, not failed at things, but could have done things differently, and then action lists to go forward. And that, I always tell people when we make a growth path or just when they're working, like, we can put the gas in the car, but it takes you getting behind the wheel and driving the car. And you are driving that car at a very fast pace. And anyone listening that wants to move into a new role, you can learn anything you can become an expert in anything you want to if you have the grit, the initiative, and the interest to. Like, I am not interested in mathematics at all, so I will never be good at calculus, or never want to learn calculus because I just don't need it. Right? You have that interest, you have that grit, and as we're looking at the influencer sourcing projects, just the overall piece with it, as you've been transitioning, once again, just kind of thinking about that flow from designer to, leader to management to strategy, what was one of the hardest parts of influencer sourcing, and what's been a good learning experience from that?
I think naturally, because it's something that I've never really been involved in at any level, just the uncertainty of it, like how the influencer is going to respond. And once you present those influences to the clients, how are they going to respond? And what are the criteria for a good influencer versus a bad influencer? Like, okay, there are these articles and there's this kind of guidance out there in terms of YouTube videos that you can follow. But essentially, when you're doing it, you cannot set that as a benchmark for your success, so you're kind of like still thinking twice over everything and just like seeing how it goes, right? So I think just the uncertainty of it was the hardest part. But I think that comes with any new thing that you're advancing towards. You just got to keep pushing forward. And one of the things that I set early on for myself, and something you mentioned as well, like, okay, we're going to treat this as sort of a learning experience. And the next time I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it much, much better than this first time. And I'm going to implement everything I learned. So I really just made it a point to document everything that I could improve in the next time that I'm doing this. So just treating that as a learning experience and not really pushing yourself too hard that, okay, I really need this to succeed, or I really need this to generate X kind of impressions. Those kind of expectations can potentially set you up for failure. Like, yes, you have an obligation to your client that you need to be successful at some level, but personally for yourself, you need to be realistic and understanding that, okay, that you're doing this for the first time. You need to give yourself some leeway if you are to eventually succeed at it, right? So that's something that I did early on. And that's something that I did for creative strategy as well. Like, there's a whole growth path laid out in front of me. I don't need to do it right the first time. It would be ideal, it would be great if I created a brief with like 6 really high performing ads, but that's not happening in the real world, right? So just managing expectations, and just also having sort of I want to say a consultant that you can refer towards always. That really helped us. It's always good to sort of have a consultation with someone who has done it, who has been in this industry for years and has done this over and over again in different trends over the years. So that is also something that is important, whether that's influencer marketing, whether that's creative strategy, is to always just partner up with someone who's done it better than you, more than you, and has done it for a greater time period than you, just so that you can avoid potentially making the same mistakes that they did as well. So yeah, those were, I think, the key things that I made a point to focus on early on.
I love that because there's a need early on, right, in careers and just in freelancing or whatever position you might be in, to teach yourself things, right? But the most power comes from being able to have a network, to be able to have people, resources that you can tap into to curve that learning time. And that is one of the goals that, of course, we look at providing on the growth paths as well, is just making sure that you have the resources and access you need to be able to guide the ship and learn as you go that way. But most all the learning really comes in the role, right? You can prep and you can read as much as you want ahead of time, but everything sticks a lot better once you're doing stuff and you're understanding where the issues might be and just having your head on a swivel and seeing those opportunities pop up. For anybody listening that might be in a graphic design role, that might be in a role that they currently want to kind of move out of and into a role in a different position or in a higher position, what would you say to them about getting started on that? Like, what was your mindset when you first started?
I mean, more recently, it was more to do with, just the advancements with the AI, which I feel like, just gave credibility to my decision to just upskill myself to a strategist rather than staying just a designer. Like, okay, I did the right thing, because you see this crazy designs coming out of the latest chat gpt update. It's been a few months, but still, you know, just to see that kind of potential, like 2 years ago it wasn't even able to generate the right text, let alone an image, right? And to now seeing it generate these full-fledged ads with maintaining and retaining the photo of the product without distorting anything, that is
Mhm.
crazy, right? And to just see yourself in the position where, okay, now you're going to be replaced eventually with some business owner, just understanding, okay, like I ChatGPT can create those ads which I needed a designer and a copywriter and a media buyer for, and it's all going to be replaced with one single owner just using ChatGPT to just create those ads and just pump them into the ad account. With the way Meta has really made it easy for everyone to run ads, there's a really low entry to barrier there. So that was one of the scary things that just like uh, confirmed that I'd made the right call there. And it's less to do with the unethical or ethical aspect of it. It's just the reality. Like from a business point of view, you're just gonna always look to optimize your costs, and always focus on what adds the most value for you, right? So if not saying that everyone should do it, but if ChatGPT, the ads that they are generating from ChatGPT, that serves your purpose, then that's essentially your kind of like your production pipeline sorted for you, right? Some may still feel the need to hire a designer, and that's completely fine as well. So that is one of the things. The other thing was just my innate need to constantly dabble with different things, and just trying to always find ways to add more things in my portfolio, uh, not really in terms of design but in terms of strategic work as well. That is what really pushed me towards this growth path here, and which is why I was so enthusiastic about constantly working towards it. And for anyone who is in the position of maybe having recently graduated from university with uh, you know at least in my country, for where I am from, you really only have a few avenues when you're a graphic designer or looking for creative roles. Like either you work at an agency where you're always expected to work overtime. That's uh, that's one of the avenues you can take, and you do learn a lot, but then you get exploited as well along the process. So I would not recommend that to anyone. And the other thing is that you can directly work with any company which has an in-house creative department, uh, and really that's something that you want to go towards if you're starting off, if you are looking more towards a work-life balance, because that would teach you the brand side of things, that would teach you stability and how realistic timelines are set. Because when you're working with an agency and when you're working in an agency, there's always many different clients that you need to cater to at a single time, which is why there's always a constant push towards next day delivery, or working overtime and things like that. So if you're starting off as a designer, know that there are better avenues for you to go towards rather than doing what everyone else is doing. And certainly there are always options available for remote work as well, which is how you can really maximize your potential, and you're not really limited geographically to any specific region. And that's how really you learn across what's working internationally and what the other part of the world is doing. Because the kind of creative strategy that everyone else in the world is doing, I really don't think that anyone in my country at least is focusing more towards that. So really just opening yourself up to a broader network rather than an echo chamber, and just being good at what the other people around you are being good at. Just like always think ahead is what I would recommend. Like I know that it's going to be daunting when you're just like graduating and you're unsure of what you want to do. So I would also say that explore a lot of things. Don't restrict yourself to any specific thing that you think you're good at, because it's one thing to love what you do and then to do it every day, but it's also another to do it for like 4 or 5 years straight, because there are going to be times when you're not going to like what you do. So you need to have something that you're going to be disciplined towards working anyhow, even if you don't like doing that every day, right? Because you're not going to step out of college or university and immediately find the thing that you're going to be doing for the next 10 years. So just always keep your options open, always keep exploring different opportunities, whether that's within your industry. Like for marketing, I always explore creative strategy, influencer marketing, TikTok shop, even performance marketing, like the media buying side of it. I'm always open to it. I'm always open to learning more things. And I would never say that uh, I have achieved the utmost learning for any specific topic. You Every day is a school day, right? That's what I live by. Like every day is a school day. So always be curious, always be learning, and you're gonna eventually find what you're good at, and then you're gonna find ways to make that work for you as well.
I love that. Education first. Keep that learning mindset. Once you graduate, you still got to keep learning all the fun stuff with business and with your expertise and your areas of opportunity and weakness as well. And so the growth path's been great so far. You're on phase 3, like I said, or milestone 3. We still have that one and some more to come. So we'll have to do another check-in here, maybe in a month or two, see how things are going, and see where you're at now compared to where you'll be at then in the next episode. So I appreciate you coming on, Umer, and we'll make sure to get something scheduled out for the future.
Amazing, sounds exciting, and thank you so much for having me here, Colby.